It gives me a deep sense of honor to extend a warm welcome to each one of you to the 132nd Annual Conference of UPASI. This gathering is not only a proud tradition, but also a living testament to the resilience, relevance, and collective spirit of the plantation community in South India. I would like to place on record my sincere gratitude to Mr. Percy T. Singamporia, Chairman KDHP, my principals, Mr. Sunil D'Souza, MD and CEO of TCPL, and Mr. Ajit Krishnakumar, ED and COO of TCPL, for allowing me to take the presidentship of this very prestigious association, UPASI, the apex body of planters of tea, coffee, rubber, cardamom, and pepper in the southern states of India. I wish to pause and remember my late parents, especially my beloved mother, who passed away this year, whose blessings continue to shape my journey. I'm grateful to my wife Geeta, my unfailing pillar of strength, my sons Abraham and Thomas, who keep me grounded and inspired. I'm glad to have my brother George and his family here with me today. I remain indebted to my mentors and my managers, many of whom are present here today, for their mentorship and guidance through these years. And I'm deeply proud to represent my colleagues at KDHP, whose dedication inspires me every day. The plantation sector in South India is the backbone of the rural economy and employs over 1.12 million workers spread over 1.2 million hectares and generates a turnover of 57,573 crores. Besides the financial contribution, the plantation sector also delivers significant planetary services in terms of carbon sequestration, oxygen release, preserving the biodiversity, and maintaining the water balance in the region it operates. Let me start by giving you a perspective on the plantation sector during the last year. The year gone by was a blend of both challenges and opportunities for the plantation sector, as the year witnessed an interplay of climatic extremes, geopolitical turbulences, and market dynamics, each leaving an indelible mark on production, pricing, and trade of key plantation commodities. The plantation commodities like tea, coffee, natural rubber, cardamom, and pepper in South India experience hurdles as well as certain silver linings, shaping the trajectory of both domestic and global commodity markets. Geopolitical tensions further complicated the global economic outlook in 2025, and the continuing conflicts in regions like Russia, Ukraine, and West Asia has resulted in temporary disruptions to the key maritime routes like Suez Canal, and the drought situation also affected the freight transit through Panama Canal, which resulted in inflated transportation costs for the commodities. The recent imposition of 50% tariff by USA on Indian goods has added another layer of complexity to the evolving trade scenario. This necessitates a need to diversify to newer markets for commodities like tea, pepper, and rubber goods. The silver lining in price for certain plantation commodities was largely a supply-side phenomenon rather than a demand-side factor, as there has been a decline in production due to the adverse impact of climate change, which is indeed not a very encouraging scenario. The price increase in plantation commodities hence must be seen in the right context against the increase in cost of production, and it may be noted that the higher prices do not necessarily translate to higher profits, as input costs like wages, fertilizers, pesticides, petrol, diesel, etc. have all gone up many-fold. The present price rise, therefore, mostly gets nullified, and as a matter of fact, in real terms, the commodity prices are on a decline. Further, South India pays the highest wages in the plantation sector in India, with the all-in cost per man day in Kerala touching almost $9, and the industry being highly labor-intensive makes the plantation operations even more challenging. The price rise witnessed in the early part of the year in most of the commodities was either due to domestic shortage, as in the case of tea and natural rubber, global shortage in the case of coffee, and both domestic and global shortage in the case of cardamom and pepper. As per reports, tea prices are expected to soften further going forward, and with anticipated wage revision, margins are expected to come under further stress for tea, whereas for coffee and spices, the prices in the short term are expected to be positive. To overcome the challenges and sustain the growth, there should be a holistic approach for all plantation commodities to enable sector to be cost competitive in the marketplace by optimizing mechanization, while simultaneously also investing in long-term field developmental programs which are capital intensive and will require government support in terms of incentive to be sustainable. Special focus is also required in research and development by increasing financial allocations, for which government support is critical to enable cutting-edge research to quickly release new climate-resilient clones to help plantations improve both yield and quality, which will enable cost reduction and product premiumization. On the demand side, there is a requirement to initiate augmenting domestic consumption of tea, coffee, and spices through generic promotion measures and a well-structured brand-building exercise for positioning the Indian plantation products in emerging and traditional markets to recapture and increase the share of Indian plantation products in the global marketplace. Let me now get down to the specific commodity trends, challenges, and the intervention measures your association has taken up with the concerned ministries and departments. Tea. India's total tea production during 2024 was estimated to be 1,304 million kilograms, reflecting a year-on-year decline of 6.5% compared to 1,394 million kilograms in the previous year. This contraction represents the first significant nationwide drop in output since 2020. It is largely attributed to adverse agroclimatic conditions, pest outbreaks, and operational constraints across several tea-producing regions. While India's total tea exports reached 256.17 million kilograms, marking a year-on-year increase of 10.57%, compared to 231.69 million kilograms in 2023, the second highest ever recorded. South India also recorded a robust export performance, with export volumes increasing by 11.02% to 100.68 million kilograms, touching the three-digit mark. An area of concern was the surge in imports, which registered a significant year-on-year increase of 127%, an increase of 19.9 million kilograms to touch record highest import of 45.36 million kilograms, which is a big concern. The disaggregated analysis indicate that Kenya emerged as the largest exporter of tea to India in 2024, with 16.81 million kilograms, marking a 355% increase over the previous year, though at a lower price of 153 rupees per kg, which is a decline of 21.5% over the previous year. UPASI had welcomed the recommendations of the Ramasation Committee constituted by Tea Board of India for examining the tea auction system in the country. The report, titled Improving Price Discovery and Market Structure in the Tea Industry, had corroborated many of the UPASI's views, including that of sampling norms. UPASI had always believed that in the free market regime, there is no need to lay down eligibility criteria for free trade samples. UPASI has also endorsed the recommendation on creating a master lot and sub-lots that would be, to a certain extent, addressing the sampling issues. UPASI had taken up with the Tea Board and the Ministry of Commerce the decision to implement the EPTL platform for pan-India tea auctions. While we recognize and support the broader vision of digital transformation and a unified auction system, we are objected to the quick rollout of the platform in its current state. As per technical feedback received from our T membership, the EPTL platform was not fully functional, ready for a live auction environment. Implementing the platform without resolving these critical issues may result in significant disruptions. We had taken up with the T board through the Ministry of Commerce to defer the mandatory implementation of the EPTL platform until the system is proven to be stable and aligned with the practical requirements of all stakeholders involved. We are thankful to the Commerce Ministry and the Tea Board of India that the matter was taken up on board and the implementation of EPTL auction was deferred. UPASI has been constantly representing to the government on the need to augment South Indian tea exports, as it is very critical for the demand-supply balance and better price realization in the region. Although South India produces 17% of India's tea production, its exports form almost 40% of national tea exports. The need for consistent availability of exportable teas for meeting long-term trade agreements to attract foreign buyers, supply of complaint teas to meet the international quality standards, and securing exports, tea testing at affordable cost to make it cost competitive, and smoothing trade pathways and boosting market access through government-level trade negotiations with importing nations. UPASI has been actively engaging with stakeholders to address these challenges and achieving sustainable export through the government support. Towards this, UPASI has sought. During UPASI delegation's meeting with the Honorable Commerce and Industries Minister, Sri Piyush Goyal, a proposal was placed for upgradation of UPASI TRF laboratory through a one-time grant of Rs 10 crores for establishing a state-of-the-art facility, including analytical capabilities for the entire gamut of tea cultivation as per standards of different countries, thereby reducing testing costs of members by up to 50%. It was also suggested that Tea Board may apply for the equipments through BIS. UPASI, through rigorous follow-up with the Ministry of Agriculture and CIBRC, was able to secure first-of-its-kind ad hoc approval for the use of dimethoate molecules for arresting the damage caused by tea mosquito bug, which was rampant across districts of South India. We have secured an ad hoc approval for the third year in a row. And although we have submitted the pesticide residue data as per the CIBRC protocol, we now have to develop the bioefficacy data by this year for securing the label claim in tea. The dimethoate molecule has been very effective in controlling tea mosquito bug infestation in South India, and that too at very low costs compared to the earlier less effective molecules used. I would like to place on record our sincere thanks to Mr. Sunil D'Souza, MD and CEO of TCPL, for taking up the matter for ad hoc approval with the Agriculture Ministry. We have also requested that the Indian tea industry be allowed to harmonize MRLs with the EU and Codex for molecules that are currently undergoing data generation. This approach will help tea growers maintain compliance while continuing their efforts to produce safe and globally acceptable tea. Incentives for orthodox tea production to be reintroduced, as nearly 91% of orthodox production was exported from India last year. And in the Tea Board meeting of India, orthodox subsidy is being considered along with replanting and replacement planting subsidies. Tea exports from India show encouraging signs of growth with a 24.48 million kilogram increase in 2024. And South India, after a gap of nearly 7 years, had touched three-digit mark in exports at 100.68 million kilograms. This momentum must be maintained through focused export interventions and building strong brands identity by promoting single origin teas. Given the excess global production of tea, the only way to address demand-supply dynamics is to increase consumption through generic promotion measures and increasing exports. As per the BDO study, the per capita consumption in India is only around 840 grams in 2023, increasing by 0.9% per annum. UPASI has been highlighting to the government on the need for a structured generic promotion campaign akin to the success achieved on the promotion of milk through Operation Flood and eggs by NECC campaign, which needs to be studied and replicated for tea. There should be a clear communication strategy focusing on the goodness of tea that should create excitement on consumption of tea, also targeting the younger generation. UPASI is confident that through collaborative efforts with the Ministry of Commerce and Tea Board, the Indian tea exports could be revitalized into its past glory despite emerging challenges. Coffee. As one of India's premier agro assets, coffee plantations have been a model for agroforestry and an embankment for conservation long before the word sustainability turned fashionable. Our growers have an abiding stake in the ecosystem of the Western Ghats and are deeply vested in its future. As per estimates, India's total coffee production expanded to 3.72 lakh tons in 2024. This growth has been driven entirely by gains in Robusta output, which rose 2.88 lakh tons over the period of 5 years, while boosting its share of the national coffee basket to 77.4%. In contrast, Arabica production declined in the last 5 years to 84,000 tons in 2024-25, with its share in the national coffee basket shrinking to 22.6%. Robusta's resilience to higher temperatures, disease prevalence, and irregular rainfall patterns, coupled with its lower production costs, may have favored its expansion, particularly in southern producing regions. Conversely, Arabica's vulnerability to pest infestations and erratic monsoon patterns has constrained output despite stable planted areas. India's coffee exports in the last 5 years reflects a striking divergence between volume growth and value escalation. During this period, export volumes have increased slightly from 3.1 lakh tons in 2021 to an estimated 3.8 lakh tons in 2024-25. However, during the same period, export earnings in rupee terms nearly tripled from 5,450 crores to 15,421 crores. World over, coffee is consumed in its pure form. Well-known coffee houses serve only pure coffee. The specialty coffee movements in Europe and US have worked to enhance the quality and profile of coffee among their consumers. This has helped millions of coffee growers in Central and South America, Asia and Africa to get better prices for better qualities. Coffee is now a beverage of choice among the youth world over. The main reason for it is that a good cup of coffee is a customer's delight, leading to more consumption. While India is emerging as a massive market for all types of consumer products, it is necessary that coffee grown in India needs to be showcased to its consumers, for which promotion of quality products is key. Coffee Board had multiple initiatives towards transformation of the coffee sector in the country. To approach an action plan for the growth of the sector, a stakeholder consultation meeting was organized to deliberate on diverse themes from farm to markets. These initiatives on implementation could pave way for the transformation of the coffee sector. The developmental schemes for coffee sector under Integrated Coffee Developmental Program for the remaining period of current medium-term framework was approved, and the overall allocation for the period 2024-25 and 25-26 was fixed at 630.15 crores. which is significant increase compared to the budgetary allocation in the last couple of years, which should facilitate actioning many of the initiatives. We thank the Government of India for increasing the outlay for the boards. Coffee consumption is growing globally with maximum traction at the premium end of the market, as coffee is perceived as an affordable luxury in the minds of consumers. There is massive scope for value addition, but in the Indian context, this has not been the case. The study by CRISIL on the extent and trends of coffee consumption in India 2023 confirms this trend, indicating that the per capita consumption declined by 2 grams during the last decade, declining from 66 grams in 2012 to 64 grams in 2023. Is this stagnancy in coffee consumption in the country anything to do with the blended coffee with chicory? Coffee chicory packets are presently available in the domestic market in varied proportion with maximum 49% chicory content. The products package available in the market are a mixture of coffee and chicory and not separately sold, as in the case of additives like sugar or milk, which ideally should have been the case. UPASI has supported the Coffee Board proposal for 3 separate labeling standards for pure coffee and coffee chicory mixture with appropriate labeling norms in the package: pure coffee with 100% coffee, coffee chicory mixture with chicory content at 30% and coffee content at 70%, and chicory flavored coffee if chicory content is a maximum of 49% and the coffee content at 51%. The proposal was included in the specification on the front of pack, as it would enable consumers to make an informed choice while buying coffees. This issue was taken up by the UPASI delegation with the Honorable Minister of Commerce and Industry on the 7th of May 2025. Following our representation at this meeting, FSSI has come out with the final notification that prescribed front of pack specification of coffee and chicory content. While the suggestion for describing coffee as pure coffee, coffee chicory mixture and chicory flavored coffee did not materialize. The Honorable Minister also suggested that a generic promotion campaign for coffee should be implemented. To protect the growers from climate change, an insurance scheme is proposed for the coffee sector, which would envision to broaden the scope of existing schemes such as rainfall insurance scheme. UPASI supports these initiatives, which we believe would provide much needed fillip to the coffee sector in the country. And Coffee Board should ensure that these are implemented to achieve the objectives envisaged. The 194th report of the Department-related Standing Committee on Commerce reviewing the performance of the Coffee Board has recommended that the ROTTAP benefit for coffee be increased to 5%, up from the current 1.4%. The report has also highlighted the need to revive the Transport and Marketing Assistance Scheme in light of logistical and trade disruptions in order to mitigate the consequent rise in freight costs. In addition, the committee has emphasized the importance of branding and promoting Indian coffee, both internationally and domestically, to build a strong identity for our produce and to enhance consumption. Notably, the Standing Committee has considered all the key points presented by UPASI during the January meeting in preparing this report, which is an acknowledgement we may consider as a matter of pride. Natural rubber. Rubber cultivation has been playing a critical role in improving the livelihoods of millions of small and marginal farmers in the country. One of the main challenges faced by the sector is growing dependence on imported rubber, which has touched second highest levels last year at 5.5 lakh tons. As the demand for rubber products continues to expand, it is essential for India to revisit its strategy for natural rubber production, focusing on enhancing domestic output, improving productivity, and reducing the growing dependency on imports. Government should make all efforts to promote growing of rubber in the country, as it has great potential to transform the lives and livelihoods of farmers, which needs encouragement. The global demand for natural rubber is increasing and will continue to increase as it is used in thousands of products. As per reports, it is estimated that anywhere between 2.7 million and 5.3 million additional hectares of plantation area would be required by 2030 to fulfill this increasing demand for natural rubber. The expansion of rubber cultivation in non-traditional areas is a welcome move. However, the outcomes in terms of productivity remains less than ideal given the suboptimal climatic conditions. Hence, it is also critical to prioritize increasing productivity in the existing traditional tapping areas, augmenting measures to boost production, such as adopting advanced agronomic practices, providing targeted support to growers, and leveraging research-driven solutions to become a central focus. These steps, backed by robust policy interventions and stakeholder collaboration, are essential to ensure that sustainable growth of the rubber industry and to meet the rising demand effectively. The unchecked import of compound rubber continues to pose another significant challenge to domestic rubber growers, undermining local production by allowing cheaper imports to dominate the market. Recognizing this, the Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Finance and Rubber Board increased the import duty on compound rubber from 10% to 25% or Rs 30 per kg, whichever is lower in FY 23-24. This step was essential given the alarming rise in compound rubber imports from 11.07 thousand tons in 2008-9 to 245,000 tons in 2024-25. A critical concern was that the increase in import duty applies only to the most favored nations and excludes countries with whom India has free trade agreements. For instance, under the Indo-ASEAN FTA, India has considered a 0% preferential tariff for compound rubber. As a result, ASEAN countries like Thailand, Malaysia and Indonesia can continue exporting compound rubber to India duty-free, while the increased import duty announced in the Union Budget 2023-24 applies only to non-FTA countries like the USA, Germany and South Korea. Given these dynamics, the increased duty for MFN countries may not significantly curb compound rubber imports, as it is evident from year-on-year increase in compound rubber imports. To safeguard the domestic rubber sector, the following measures are essential, such as fixing a minimum import price for compound rubber, revisiting import duty concessions under FTAs, and authorizing the Rubber Board for import monitoring. The issue was taken up with the Rubber Board in the Ministry of Commerce, and it was suggested that with the natural rubber content in compound rubber, if it is more than 50%, it should be treated as natural rubber, and the relevant import tariff applicable to natural rubber should apply. The BIS is now entrusted to come out with technical specifications for compound rubber. These measures will be pivotal in protecting domestic rubber growers, stabilizing natural rubber prices, and fostering sustainable growth in the sector. The SION norms serves as a foundation for determining eligibility for duty-free imports. These norms dictate the quantity of imports, such as natural rubber, that can be imported duty-free for producing specific rubber products. However, the SION norms needs to be regularly revisited and updated to reflect advancements in technology and manufacturing processes that have significantly reduced the amount of natural rubber requirement for production. At present, the consuming industry continues to base its imports on outdated SION norms, leading to a mismatch between actual requirements and approved quantities. For example, the SION for tire imports currently specifies 44% natural rubber per tire, whereas the industry estimates on the actual requirement is way lower than that. This discrepancy not only inflates the quantity of natural rubber being imported, but also risks excess import of natural rubber entering the domestic market at 0% duty, which undermines local production and market dynamics. To address these issues, it is crucial to institute a system for regular and periodic revision of SION norms for natural rubber. These updates should align with technological advancements, evolving manufacturing practices, and accurate industry data. Such revisions will help ensure the fair and efficient use of duty-free import provisions while safeguarding the interests of domestic rubber producers and maintaining a balanced and sustainable market ecosystem. During UPASI's delegation's meeting with the Honorable Minister of Commerce and Industry, it was suggested constituting an expert committee to study the input-output for import of rubber under the Advanced Licensing Scheme. An MOU has been signed between the Rubber Board of India and UPASI last year to foster stronger collaboration between rubber growers and Rubber Research Institute of India, facilitating advanced research, extension services, and training to advance sustainable practices and innovation in natural rubber cultivation. The research and collaboration will be made in RRI technologies on the broad scope of activities such as research on natural rubber being aligned with the industry requirement, research on high-yielding, climate-resilient, and high timber content clones, increasing yield per tree per annum, mechanization to augment productivity, and address the labor shortage situation. Another promising initiative that is underway is to explore the potential of cultivating vetiver as an intercrop in vacant areas within rubber plantations. This effort aims to enhance land utilization while creating an additional revenue stream for rubber growers. Spices. India is the land of spices, and the glory of Indian spices are known throughout the world. No country in the world produces as many varieties of spices as India. The tropical, subtropical, and temperate climates and the varied soil types in India make it possible to grow almost all spices. The growth in spice exports has been quite impressive in the last few years, and it accounts for nearly 10% of the total agricultural exports from the country and 40% of horticultural exports. Though Spice Board has 52 spice crops under its purview, its area of activity across value chain, covering production, development, marketing, and research, is confined only to small and large cardamom. For the other 51 spice crops, its activities are confined to post-harvest activities, promotional activities, value addition, organic production, and promotion and export promotion. Though the mandate was expanded to other spice crops for post-harvest activities, the budget provisions in the union budget remain static until the recent budget announcement. Production of high-value spice should be promoted as an intercrop or as a multi-crop in plantations such as tea, coffee, and rubber. This will have multiple benefits, like increasing the income per unit area of the existing plantation, promoting polyculture as against monoculture, and generating exportable surplus of spice crops. The high-value crop that are imported dependent on clove, cinnamon, cassia, nutmeg, maize could be grown as intercrop in plantations, which would reduce the import dependence and save the precious foreign exchange for the country. An area that requires urgent intervention is on value addition of spices, as presently the value addition in spices is limited to oils and oleoresins, ground spices, curry powder, and dehydrated and frozen dried spices. Efforts are to be made to develop and commercialize new end products like micro-encapsulated spices, sterilized spices, and the like for export. This calls for a robust spice processing infrastructure in the country and technology upgradation in the spice sector to ensure that India becomes a global hub for processed, powdered, and value-added spices. In 2023-24, spice exports has reached a realization of $4.46 billion milestone, and hence an important sector for the Government of India in its pursuit for doubling the agricultural exports. Research efforts need to be intensified to develop superior plant varieties that are high-yielding, disease-resistant, and climate-resistant. This is essential for enhancing productivity and ensuring the long-term sustainability of the spices sector. The impact of FTA agreements on the spice trade needs to be revisited. FTAs should be structured to safeguard the interests of Indian spice farmers and exporters while enabling access to new markets. It is suggested that government should come out with specific guidelines on following. A. Import under Indo-Sri Lankan FTA should be monitored and licensed. B. Issued by Government of India to the importers so that no third country takes advantage. B. Issuing certificate on country of origin should be entrusted to officials at higher levels. Plantations. The issue confronting each plantation commodities and the demands are different. The commodity boards could play a more important role in development of respective plantation commodities by realigning its focus and objectives and being more of a facilitator and knowledge center with increased focus on promotion of both product internally and externally with renewed efforts on R&D. The other areas attention should be post-harvest management and marketing. Adequate representation of Growers Association in the boards is imperative as they are fully appraised of issues and challenges faced by the plantation growers, and their representation in the board will help the government in getting the views of the plantation industry quickly, and alternatively the associations can also take up the matter with commodity boards for earlier redressal on issues concerned. By coordinating with other ministries, the board can address cross-cutting issues and acquaintance with international institutions, nodal agencies in other producing and importing countries and destinations. They can play a more effective role in the change scenario. The European Union had framed deforestation regulations EUDR, which came into force from 29 June 2023 and will be in operation with effect from 1st January 2026. EUDR stipulates that only deforestation-free products such as coffee, natural rubber, palm oil, soya, wood, beef and cocoa will be allowed in the EU markets provided they are not produced on the land deforested after 31st December 2020. This means that each and every supply has to be traceable if the final product is placed in the EU market, and for UPASI membership, its applicability is confined to coffee and natural rubber. There is a need for India to put in place the compliance mechanism quickly to take advantage of the regulations in terms of premium, as coffee and rubber plantations in South India are largely compliant with the regulations. It is imperative that the Ministry of Commerce and Commodity Boards work together to address the EUDR issues. Coffee Board and Rubber Board should be authorized nodal agency for coordinating the stakeholders and for providing a procedural map to address these emerging issues, as both these organizations are fully seized of the matter. There is a need to set up Atal Incubation Center for tea and spices, replicating the success of Atal Incubation Center for coffee. At the meeting with the Honorable Minister at Delhi during May 2025, the Ministry of Commerce was advised to follow up with Niti Aayog Atal Mission for exploring the possibilities for an Atal Incubation Center for tea and spices on the line of Atal Incubation Center for coffee. Man-animal conflicts. The southern Indian states are witnessing a rising trend in man-animal conflicts, particularly in plantations, farmlands and forest fringe areas. These incidents are driven by climate change, urbanization, near protected areas, littering and other disturbances are causing loss of human lives, property damage, and community unrest. The wildlife experts note that altered animal behavior due to habitat pressures is leading to more frequent straying into human settlements. The way ahead is policy reforms in wildlife management to reduce conflict and safeguard life and property. Government intervention via forest rapid response teams and early warning systems, solar-powered fencing, awareness and education programs, and a balanced approach ensuring community safety while protecting forest ecosystems as their vital climate change buffers. That's all, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much.